Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of our favorite people. I am your host, April DeMille, and today our special guest is Lara Bokovay. I think it's Bokovay, actually. Lara Bokovay is a mother intuitive guide, truth teller, and devoted to helping women return to themselves. So let's get into this. Hey, lady. Thank you
Hello.
again. Thank you again for being with me today. I was just reading your little introduction, but if you want to go ahead and state your name and tell us a little bit about yourself, that would start.
My name's Lara Bokovay, and I am a mom and a guide and a truth teller, sort of helping women come back to themselves and live life in alignment. So I do that through my intuitive work as well as coaching. But yes, I can jump to the truth of things very fast because of my intuitive gifts. So
Which is always very helpful. Like to just have
mhm,
a target to aim for, it really helps weed out the bullshit.
exactly.
Yeah, that's the way I like to think of it. So, when you're helping women return to their truth, can you share a bit about your own journey and how that played a pivotal moment in returning to your truth?
Yeah, I guess so. It all started well, can't believe it's almost 6 years, but it all started about 6 years ago when my marriage at the time fell apart. And it started slightly before then. I went through some career transition moves and then so sort of left corporate and was working on my own health, and in discovering and unraveling my own health I became more in touch with my intuition and more in touch with how I'm feeling and all that kind of stuff. And then I started doing some reflective questions. What does it mean to be loved the way you want to be loved? And then through that process, as life naturally unfurls, as it does with divine timing, my marriage just fell apart rapidly. And then I was, going through a divorce in the pandemic and, really cast into solitude, in regards to that. So I had a lot of time to reflect, probably more because of life circumstances. And so with that relationship unraveling, and I was a new mom and I was an entrepreneur and trying to find that all or work itself out, I put myself into some deep reflective work, and I've been on a intense healing journey for the past 5 years, 6 years now because we're already in 2026. But
Yeah.
I've gone on a deep healing journey. And when my relationship fell apart, it sort of shone light on so many areas of my lack of self-worth and my self-value,
Mhm.
and so many areas on where I was performing and what it means to be in alignment and who Lara Bokovay actually is. Um, because when you're a new mom and you're already so vulnerable going through all that kind of stuff, and I had a daughter, and so she was such a catalyst for me to figure my own shit out because I was not going to lead her down the path that I was in. So it was more of a I need to figure myself out so I can lead her properly or in the right way. And if I could stop her from going through these life experiences and, having the limiting beliefs that I've lived with, my entire life, then that's what I'm going to do. So it was almost like I was forced into taking radical accountability to make sure that I was leading by example and living the way for my daughter.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Like that totally makes sense to me. And and I love that you were able to like step into that. like just really leaned into that, even though it's like hard work. Like it's not, it's
It is not
literally,
easy.
it's not easy and it's not for the faint of heart at all. And there's so much grief wrapped up in loss of identity. Um,
Well, and I don't even know if it's loss of identity because, like, I didn't even know who my identity was. Like, when
right,
you actually peel back the layer, I've been performing for survival mode my
right,
entire life. Like,
right.
like I had to go back to who Lara was when I was 3 and 4 before I was super programmed or conditioned. Like, I had to go back to the 3-year-old version of myself
Yeah,
to actually uncover who
yeah,
that was before, life took over.
yeah.
So
So
it went young.
you had to like unlearn all the things, which there's still a lot of grief in that. Even if you're finding
Yeah.
yourself or remembering yourself, there's still a lot of grief in all that shadow work, It's not easy.
No. No, well, yeah, healing is not easy. The
No.
outcome, I would do it all over again
Right.
for the outcome, but no, it was, my gray hairs are earned. Like like this truly it's been a journey.
I'm
It's
just
been a
gonna call it glitter for being fabulous. So
Mhm.
that's what I'll call it. And then so I also wanted to ask you, you talked about a little bit about performing, and I kind of want to talk about that because I feel like there might be subtle signs that we can look for that, say, hey, you're performing as opposed to living authentically. And if you have anything to offer on that.
You know what? I really didn't realize I was performing in every single area of my life, not just
Mhm.
with romantic relationships, but also in friendships with family. Like when I say performing, it's like if you do anything for the reaction of somebody outside of yourself, you're performing. So if you
Totally.
do, at work, if you're working the long hours, you're not working the long hours for yourself. You're working the long hours so you can please somebody, so you don't get fired. So like everything is performance. Like everything is
Mhm.
performance. So my body image was tied with performance, which is all tied to
Mhm.
your self-worth and your self-value. How I showed up in physical intimacy and emotional intimacy was all performance. Like nothing was authentically me.
Mhm.
And even though there were glimmers of people who could actually see me through the entire process, the true Lara, the Lara that wasn't performing, I literally performed everywhere. And to the point that and when I say performed, performing isn't being fake. Performing is doing things that normally, if you were to ask me, well, would that align with you? If you perform, then it opens things up for resentment, for guilt, for shame, for you name it. So performance is tied to so many emotions down the road that you don't even know necessarily equate to that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so when you're trying to, and generally, so many of us we're conditioned to perform to walk. Like when I think about my daughter taking her first steps and me clapping and smiling, your child walks towards you because they're doing something and you're excited. So
Mhm.
they're still doing the actions, like even as a toddler, it's like, don't look at them, you'll encourage bad behavior. That's all performing. Like we condition people to perform right out of the womb. Like, you know what I mean? Like whether it's children or pets or you name it, like they need to have a certain behavior and they get a certain reaction from us based on that certain behavior. So when you realize that the performing that you're doing is for a reaction, and when you remove that performance, you look at everything. You're like, okay, well, how is this actually tied to my self-worth and my self-value? Like, is it a reflection of who I am? Like, and when I come to, and the biggest things, like for me, the first things that I started realizing when I was like unraveling my marriage was, oh my gosh, like I've performed physically intimately my entire life. Like I've never, yes, there's the enjoyment of everything, but like there was still it was always to please or satisfy somebody else outside of me. And that it so it's like, and it like I said, it goes through every single relationship, not just romantic. It's like I realized that I was showing up even when I didn't want to, doing things that I thought, would make you a good wife or make you a good daughter or make you a good friend. Like all those things. And if they don't come naturally, you're performing.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like same thing too. Oh, well, I called so and so and saw how they were doing. Well, why are you sharing that you've done that? You would just do that because you just want to do it because you want to know how they are. You don't need to then announce that you've done that to, get, oh yeah, that she's doing good or she's doing the right thing, all of the above. So truly, you end up performing in so many different areas.
Yeah. And that's, and having that awareness is really nice because then you can kind of recognize, your people pleasing, your codependence, your approval seeking, wherever that is showing up, which really puts
All
all
of the
of
above,
us,
yeah.
yeah, which puts all of us like in imposter mode all the time. Like we're
All the
always
time.
all the time. And that's exhausting. It's
Like it
exhausting.
it's and doesn't matter what work you've done, you'll
Right.
still go through those things, right? Like
Totally.
because it's something that I've done 98% of my life. Even to this day, if I'm posting something new on social media or whatever, I still go through the motions, being like, okay, am I saying this right or whatever, as opposed to just saying, okay, I'm just gonna say it, and I don't care how it's perceived. Like there's still it's ingrained in me to be professional, or it's ingrained in me to
Right.
be aware of that, and so but you end up getting through those roadblocks faster. That's the whole thing with healing, right? Like you
Yeah.
go sort of through the motions. So what would take you a month to get through, or what would take you a week to get over, you're able to sort of get through that within 5 minutes. That's the
Yeah.
that's the purpose of doing the work, is to able to navigate, those feelings of discomfort faster so you
Yeah.
can sort of move on and release, and then you're back in alignment and flow and life is
Right.
good.
Right. And you actually said something that's really important. You talked about moving through the discomfort. And the biggest part of that is learning that your body is showing you discomfort and how to listen to that because all of us just bypass all that.
Well, most of us, we've gaslit ourselves our entire life. Like,
Totally.
my dog has been such a wise teacher. Like, he truly, when I started returning to my senses, or actually, like if our tummy grumbles, as women specifically, oh yeah, like I'll just eat later or whatever. Like we just gaslight ourselves, and our tummies actually like say, no, I'm hungry, like eat, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and when I watch my dog, how he, before he goes out, how he looks around and sometimes takes 10 minutes if like he can't hear properly to make sure that he's safe. Like so many times in life, like I've always been told I'm a bull in a china shop. I just plow through, and then I end up hurting myself. So it's like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like the amount when we actually go back to our like animalistic senses and actually like feel things and acknowledge things and not squash them saying, "Oh no, I'm not hungry," or "No, I'm not tired." Like, if we actually start listening to our bodies, which most of us don't do that
Right.
because it was either not convenient or, once again, not safe to actually feel what our bodies are telling us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful to return to your senses.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that that's true. Like learning how to listen to your body is pretty key element. And
Such a key. Like and it's really, and going back to the word, it's a discomfort. Like it's a
mhm.
discomfort because once you can be aware of what's going on in your body, then it's also really hard. when you have that level of self-awareness to then tell yourself something else. You know what I mean? Like it's the more aware that you are, the harder it is to sort of like lie to yourself, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like once the blinders are off, it's harder to put them back on. So,
that's totally true. I can't
yeah.
unsee this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Um,
that's the whole thing. Like performance comes with awareness. So it's like,
mhm.
the first step truly is self-awareness. So when you get yourself in a situation and you ask yourself, well, do I want to do that? Does it light me up? Is that a yeah or is it a no? Or, ask yourself in a mirror, like, do you want to go do this? If your face scrunches up, well, your body's resisting it. So
Right.
like listen to that. But
Yeah.
the first is actually having the self-awareness to ask yourself, does this feel right? Right?
Yeah.
Like not just like sitting with your stomach, ask you different questions. You're like, am I going to do this? And then you start realizing you're like, oh, I don't really want to do that. Okay, I'm performing there. So it's like, because when you think of performing, like when someone first said to me, oh, you're performing, I was like, no, I'm not. And you're like, well, yeah, you are, because it's still based on not being abandoned or, being chosen by that
Yeah.
other person. Like it's still outside of you. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's all these other factors where we go, oh, I have to be the little puppet on the strings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of that, can you talk about, I mean, I feel like that kind of it might actually touch base on this question, but I was going to talk about the difference between healing from truth as opposed to survival and conditioning.
Well, so healing so first it's knowing that you can't there's so many things that we have literally done in survival mode and we don't even realize once again it's survival mode. The biggest shift in my healing was becoming self-aware. Like
Yeah.
very few people are self-aware and self-awareness is something that you continue to build. But like when it comes to actually saying, okay, well, if there's any if the result is to not be chosen or to be abandoned, and when I say to be abandoned, it's like to not be called or not to be called back or to not be promoted or not, if it's to be left behind in some aspect or to not be given the full opportunity or whatever the case is, you have to be like, okay, well, my truth, my self-loyalty is more important than my self-abandonment.
Yeah.
Because you'll never be satisfied if there's any self-abandonment in it. And so when people have the house and the marriage and the cars and whatever, and they still feel like something's missing, it's because somewhere along the line there's been some level of self-abandonment,
Yeah.
whatever that is. We're conditioned to self-sacrifice.
Hmm.
And that's so distorted, right? And like that's just how we're conditioned to self-sacrifice and that, you have to compromise and you have to sacrifice and and the truth is the returning to truth is you don't need to do any of that to be worthy of love.
Right.
And so I think that's the missing piece for so many individuals, cultures, you name it. I mean, this is like cross-cultural. This is cross-continent. You know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
truly you truly are when you're self-sacrificing, you're not serving yourself, nor you're not serving others because you're not then showing up authentically and in your truth. And so when you're in your truth and you're like, and when I say your truth, it's what actually feels right for you. Like what is your truth? Not what society tells you to do, not what you think that you should do, right? Like should, could, would. If any of those are in the sentence, then it's not in alignment. Like
Right.
what you feel called to do, what you want to do, what lights you up, like what do you want? Most people are so used to not honoring those questions, hence the lack of self-loyalty. Most people are more worried about all their fears that stem from that instead of actually being honest and truthful with what they want.
Yeah.
And then they feel like then they have to self-sacrifice to get what they want. But the truth is, if you do that, there will always be resentment. There's always that negative energy and frequency tied to it.
Hmm.
And you can have everything that you want without self-sacrificing. And that's the bridge. That's the jump that everyone needs to get to.
So I kind of want to follow that trajectory for a second, because if we are talking about um, a romantic relationship, like partnered, you know, husband, wife, 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 husband, husband, however that goes, right? Whatever your partnership is. Um, in that dynamic, what is the difference that you would see for someone, I guess there's like a fine line between compromise and self-abandonment, right? Compromise or shrinking. And so if both people are just choosing themselves, how does collaboration happen?
When there's an understanding with what the other person wants. So, like,
Okay.
let's say somebody wants to go do an activity and the other person really doesn't want to.
Okay.
Well, what does that activity actually gain? Is there a benefit? If it benefits both parties, then it's not really compromise because you understand why you're going to do that.
That you understand the value of like why we're going to do this thing.
Yeah, so it's just like, but if for example, you don't understand that value, then it will feel like self-sacrifice and there'll be resentment. So
Okay.
most people are self-centered, most people in that sense that they don't understand that it's either for the benefit of the whole
Mm-hmm.
of the partnership
Mm-hmm.
or understand what's going on for their partner and why we're going to go do this instead of this. You know what I mean? Like so when there's a deep understanding and it's all from love, then it's not really the compromise that self-abandons, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, okay, I want to do wings tonight and you want to do a salad. Well, the compromise is I can order a salad where you get your wings. Like, you know what I mean? Like if
Right.
like there's not you don't not one has to give up the other, but you both get what you want.
What
But when
would,
it comes to, oh, I want to do this instead of this, and you're like, okay, well, this is what we truly need first, and this is why. And then the
mhm.
other partner goes, okay, I understand why we're doing that first. But
Okay.
if there's an understanding, then there's no resentment towards it.
What about if somebody's like, hey, I want to go see my friend. Let's go see our friends this weekend. And one's like, yeah, I don't really want to do that, but we can go do that with you this time, and then next time we'll go see my friends. Is that the same thing as,
I think it'd be an understanding why, once again, there needs to be a little bit more understanding with why this weekend works better to see this set of friends and why another weekend work better doing another set.
right?
So it's not that there's one, once again, if you're going into it without the explanation, then
Hmm.
one person could always feel, oh, we're always seeing your friends and we're never seeing my friends.
Yeah. Which
But
is,
what's
go ahead.
but you have to know what the honest truth is, going back
Yeah.
to the word truth. Like, what is the truth, right? Like, who knows? Like, maybe, oh, well, you know what? She has a baby shower next weekend and won't be available. Okay, no problem. You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah.
Or I really want to have this conversation with her and they're like, okay, great. Like, no problem. But
Yeah.
if, if it's always one-sided, well, that's not really compromise either. That's not a compromising situation. Like compromising situations are one off, potentially two off, not like, okay, well, the theme is for the last 3 months, every single weekend we're hanging out with your friends and never my
Right.
friends. Well,
Right.
there's
That's
something
just being
like,
run over at that point.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, in a situation, if there's a reason behind it, say, oh, well, I already made plans. And then you're like, oh, well, I made plans. And you're like, okay, well, how do we do this? Like what's everyone's schedules the week after and how can we actually, so no one's sort of being left out. But I think I think when there's a common goal at the end,
Hmm.
then the compromise isn't attached to resentment. When there's self-abandonment and self-sacrifice, then that's when there's the resentment that follows that.
Yeah, yeah. And so I feel like regardless, it would take two very self-aware individuals, which you have already mentioned, isn't as common as we would like to see it. It's really
No.
not. So you'd have to have two very, healthy individuals that have good self-awareness and amazing communication skills for something like for a foundation like that to even happen.
100%. And even going back to there's so much resentment in partnerships, all the time
Yeah.
because that's not vulnerability is a superpower, both emotional and physical, you name it, but very few people know their truth with their whys. You know what I mean? Because if
Yeah.
you actually expressed your truth and your why with why you would need to do something one weekend, it would be cruel if your partner also didn't understand your whys. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like, even if one partner is more self-aware than the other,
Hmm. Hmm.
if there's any resentment to it, then there's some level of truth or understanding that isn't being communicated properly.
Right. And then abandonment still happening because then that means someone in the relationship is taking up more the need than and then there's no room left for the other person.
And once again, like, self-abandonment can look in so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Like never voicing what you want, like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like once again, most people have
Saying
resentment
yes
because
and
they actually
agreeing when
didn't
you
ask for what they wanted in the first place.
yeah, and are in and when somebody's like, "Hey, come help us move" or whatever, and you genuinely don't want to, but you go do it anyway, you have just abandoned yourself. You have just betrayed yourself.
Like you could say no.
Yeah, totally
People
say no.
either and people so often don't want to say no because of their fears of judgment and all that kind
Right.
of stuff. And you're like, well,
Yeah.
you can, like, and I think, we're conditioned in society to please, you know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
once again, it's safer to please and, take the hit later than it actually is to say no, no, I can't, sorry. Or,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing. You're like, you could have a bad knee or you could have pulled your back out at yoga and you're like, the friend in you being like, I want you. But the truth is, I pulled my back. I'm happy to come help pack, but I can never move any boxes. That
Yeah.
would be a truthful statement as
Yeah.
opposed to just saying no or saying yes and then bickering about it or, being bitchy about it the entire time.
Yeah, exactly. Or eating yourself up with guilt because you just did this thing that you did not want to do. And you're
100%.
further injured even. So yeah. And then I feel like I was going to ask you something and my brain just went blank. Uh, okay, well, I guess we're going to shift. So I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but whatever, we're going to roll with that. So, sacred sexuality. Let's talk about that one.
Going back to being in my body, I sex to me was all performative.
Okay.
And when I say all performative, I always had in mind the other person as opposed to myself.
Okay.
Going back to talking about compromising and all that kind of stuff, I used to plow through or do things that weren't comfortable or perform or do different things all for the act of it,
Okay.
the performance of it.
Right.
Like a showgirl almost. You know what I mean? Like it was
Hmm.
like it was all the best. And When my marriage unraveled, it had nothing to do with it had to do everything with me finding myself again. Like, who am I? Like, what do I enjoy doing? What lights Lara up? How am I not safe? And so my journey of my sacred sexuality or coming back into union with myself, I truly started having to feel safe again in my body.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about feeling our body and all that kind of stuff, my psoas and my hips were so tight because of all the sexual trauma that I put my body through.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea how to reconnect with myself. And when I started reconnecting with the divine, the universe, and, when I started balancing out my masculine and feminine energy, and when I started sort of saying, okay, I'm going to sort of like date God, like in a weird way. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna, I can do the feminine, but I need to give over. I'm gonna choose the universe as my partner. So he
Yeah.
will be my masculine. He's gonna keep me safe and all that kind of stuff. In that process, I connected also with not just my own energy source, but I also connected with also a counterpart sexually.
Mm-hmm.
And so that journey of connecting with a divine counterpart was so potent and powerful in me learning to love my body again. And so I call it sacred sexuality because like there was like you could do the womb space and you can go into safety and you can go into different meditative states, but like there was such a journey of, learning to dance naked with my energetic counterpoint and touching my body in places that I no longer was confident in after giving birth and rediscovering the woman's body that I have compared to the 20-year-old's body that I had, pre-marriage and pre-baby and all that kind of stuff. So like there was such a sacredness to it. And then through that sacredness, I realized how I truly had no value for my vessel. And my vessel is so magnificent. And, I had no love. I mean, if you want to jump into past lives, I spent years in brothels and past lives and you name it. Like, I have spent my entire soul's existence in different positions of escorts and brothels and you name it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was wild to me going through consciously my sexual relationships in this lifetime and realizing how I was repeating so many past life patterns and what did I garnish or gain from them in this lifetime. So it was just like, and when I say garnish or gain is just like knowing how that energetic connection is, knowing what it feels like to actually feel safe with a partner intimately, knowing what it feels like to feel safe with myself. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't safe with myself, so I had to learn all what it feels like to feel safe. And through that process, through moving that energy and connecting with that energy, both inside and external, there's just something so sacred and so divine about actually becoming one with yourself, knowing yourself, feeling your energy. Like I feel at one point of my awakening when it came to that sacred sexuality is like, oh my gosh, I feel like there was like immaculate conception sometimes. And like I literally took pregnancy tests because like I was just like, what is happening energetically going through
Yeah.
my body? And like it was such an experience to learn to love myself because I performed. I was so used to getting so much external validation that
Hmm.
when I removed myself from being able to get external validation, I had to figure out and love myself for who I was without the noise and the influence of anyone outside of me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like even in going back to just in relationships, I was like, "Oh, you don't tell me I'm pretty enough, or I don't tell beautiful enough, or like I need to hear those words more." That's all external validation. Like,
Right.
like, "Oh, I need you to tell me that you think I'm sexy." Like once again, that's all external. It's like I had to get to a place of my own inner knowing of that sacred sexuality, primal, visceral, what it is to make love, what it is to be physically intimate with someone, what it is to be physically intimate with myself. Like I had to rewire and learn all of that so I wasn't then moving into something that I needed validation or I wasn't performing. Like I had to
Right.
be in touch with my body to a whole other level that I truly didn't even know I wasn't in touch with.
Yeah.
That's the wild thing. It's like I truly did not know that I wasn't. And once again, it's like the levels of self-awareness that continue to peel back as you continue to heal. It was just such a beautiful, magnificent experience to be so connected with myself and to know the the beauty of the feminine, the beauty of the woman's body, the magnificence of the woman's body. Like I didn't really, I never had any of those values growing up. And not from a value from just like a religious standpoint of things. Like I had no idea of my worth and my value just being me and my vessel. And
Yeah.
that's like I think that's a journey that I don't believe you can do without touching on the actual sacred sexuality of it all,
Hmm.
because we are animalistic beings. We are here to procreate. Like our senses, our ovulation cycles, our moon cycles, like everything is still this animalistic primal being within us. And when we are disconnected from the animal that we are, then we're missing so many threads on
Yeah.
the healing journey.
Yeah. There's a lot of misfires happening when we're, um, like you said, when we're just kind of disconnected from our true essence.
Yeah. And like and it's so simple, but it's just like, right, I need you to go into, and now I can call it like somatic movements and all this kind of stuff. But I mean,
Right.
like truthfully, it's like as simple as like start dancing with your eyes closed. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like it's coming back to your body and not the biggest thing through a lot of things, going back to this, when I say self-love, it's not like self-love and like actions. It's like, no, no, no. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is my vessel. Thank you so much for holding me. Like, like you've kept me safe my entire life. Like, why have I hated you my entire life? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
such a, but there's a sexual primal energy of being able to create life and what that looks like inside our body and that light energy and frequency that runs through us that is just, there's something so visceral about sacred sexual energy that needs to be acknowledged and harnessed because it's truly our life force. Like that is what makes us go. That is what makes us light up. Like our bodies move better and all that kind of stuff when the engine is oiled and functioning. Like we're truly to not be tapped into that or in tune with that, you're missing such a huge part of your being.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I went on a journey, um, and this, I guess this started in, what was it, 2018. I was celibate for 6 years. And that was how I came to remember my truth too, was because I had to shred away all the layers and all the connections and all the busy, all the noise, and get down to the core of what I was, and if that meant that I could, if that meant to me that I needed to cut off any and all dating, sexual activity, whatever that was, with myself and the world around me, then that's what I was going to do. And I stayed in that for 6 years.
Well, yeah, for me it'll be 6 years in July.
So
Like
see,
that, like you
yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah,
every and it's so going back to the self-loyalty and self-abandonment, it's like for me, it's not even hard. Like, like
mm-mm,
when it's like when I look when I understand that you can create life, you know what I mean? And when I had my daughter,
mhm,
I was just like not only from a the conceiving of my daughter was challenging. It took us a long time. We were like on the brinks of a fertility clinic. It was horrible in the conceiving of her. You know what I
right,
mean? It was just, and then so I was unsupported there. I was unsupported, in the pregnancy and as a new mom. It's like, oh my gosh, I can create life. There's no way I'm ever going to even do the act of creating life if this is what's the outcome's going to be.
right,
It's like, it was almost like that scared me more
yeah, because you
than
didn't feel safe enough to create the life to begin with.
yeah. So it's just like I'm never gonna put myself in that position again to even potentially create life with somebody who I'm not completely, I'm not in love with, they're not totally in love with me, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I thought that's what it was, in the moment, but now having the 6 years of deep healing work and celibacy, I was like, oh my gosh, like I I wasn't the person that I needed for myself either. Like, like
Yeah,
if we want the Prince Charming or whatever, well, I wasn't the queen. I didn't have my own
right,
kingdom at the now I do, but like, like
yeah,
it took me, I'm so thankful and grateful that I've had that opportunity because it forced me in finding my own self-worth because I truly tied my self-worth to how I was received by men. So, that it was a big journey, but I'm so happy. And you know what? And every single time I might have been talking to somebody, the universe had a way of like removing them really fast or something blowing up. They're like, "Oh no, Lara, you're not getting off this alignment. Like you're staying on course." So like, like it was also like divinely intervened and divinely guided through the process. It was just like I knew that if I continued being the way that I was,
hmm,
that I would always feel out of alignment. I'd always feel like I was resentful or compromising in a negative way, or there'd be self-abandonment for sure.
yeah. Well, and what was interesting was, and I can't speak on your journey, but I can speak on mine, is the reason why I had decided 6 years was time to move out of that was because um, resentment had started. So it was easy for me to do celibacy. It was very easy. I would say after the first year, for sure, it was like a breeze, right? Because once you realize what healthy is, it's super easy to stay there, right?
Yeah.
But then I wasn't, I had all these tools, I had all these resources, I had all this awareness, I had all this, I had a beautiful, I had a beautiful foundation. But what did that mean if I wasn't putting it into practice, right? And if I wasn't building resilience in real world time with real practices
Well,
and
that's the
real,
thing. You have to still live
right,
live your life, right?
right.
So,
So that's where I started realizing, okay, it's great that I can do all these things, but can I even practice what I preach? And I wouldn't know that unless I actually got involved in a romantic relationship. I wouldn't know.
yeah.
So it came to that. And then I started realizing that I was having health issues because somewhere in the middle of that 6 years, I had started it was like counterproductive because it was good for a while and it was what I needed, what I wanted, but then I'd achieved what I needed and what I wanted and stayed there too long. So now my body started screaming at me in other ways. I was broke. I started having money blocks. I started having my uterus prolapse, Like all kinds of other things were starting to fail. And I was like, oh, whoa, hey, that is not what is supposed to be happening. So
Yeah.
self-abandonment was still showing up. And I was like, okay, it's time to move through this. And so that's why I had to finally make the decision or at least face the fears. Because I think part of the reason why I stayed there so long was because I was afraid that I would forget this new found version of myself and go revert right back to where I was. So I just kept staying. And then that was still self-abandonment, right? Because it was based on the fear of, am I strong enough? Am I ready for this? Right. And so that was when I finally had to make the decision, okay, I get it. I got to do the thing. And that's when I finally came out of mine.
Little
Yeah.
hermit healing bubble.
Yeah. That's
And
when I had to.
how did you find those like relationships? Like was it like did you start going on dating apps again or like how did you
Yeah,
reconnect
I
to
so actually I reconnected to someone from high school, right? Somebody that I hadn't even seen since like, I don't know, like 1993 or 4. And that was just by chance on Facebook. But no, I wasn't a fan of dating apps. I'd had my experience with all that. I hated that actually. I felt that that was very surface level, and it was really hard to get to know people that way in a world where things are so busy.
yeah,
However, you have to do something when everybody's got lives and busy and all the things.
yeah.
So when I did start putting myself out there, I had played with Facebook dating because it was a little less pressure on the dating part and like you could just make friends and network. And I was like, okay, I like that because there's already a little less pressure for everyone that it has to be this thing, right? Like, and so that's kind of how I started dipping my toes in the water. And I did start slowly dating and putting myself out there.
And what do you feel was like the resentment like with like at the end of the journey?
I think the part where I felt like I had abandoned myself was because I'd stayed in it too long. Like I didn't
Mm,
need the lesson. I didn't need to relearn the lesson I'd already learned. I'd already been in there long enough to do that. I was staying in it because I was too afraid to move out of it and practice what I preach, right? Like that's why I think the resentment started building because I was like, oh, I didn't need to be there that long. And then I started having other issues because I stayed there so long. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah.
And when you started dating with the self-awareness, was it like nerve-wracking because like you
No,
were
it was so
almost
much easier. I was like, you're a no, you're a no, you're a no. Like it was so easy to like fly through the what works and what doesn't for me, right? And it was very easy because I already had the foundation and the boundaries, and I was very familiar with what that version of myself looked like and what she was looking for, right? Because, like you said, you can't attract the king if you're not the queen. And that's
yeah.
where I was. I was like, I know what I bring. So I don't tolerate some bullshit, right? Like that's just where I
How
was.
did you find being on different dating platforms in a feminine queen energy as opposed to the masculine searching?
What do you mean?
Like in the feminine receiving energy,
Okay.
how did you show
So,
up
right.
in those platforms as a feminine and not in your hyper masculine
I'll tell
driving it?
you, I never reached out to other people first. That was one of the things I put in my profile that I was definitely like in the profile it had all my information. So I'm like, if you're not reading the profile, then like that's already information for me. I also put that I was into polarity and the divine masculine and the feminine. And so then I just let people find me and I wasn't too worried about anything other than responding. Does that make
Fascinating.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I get that because it's interesting because some when some people go back into the dating, then they jump right back into the masculine driving as
Yep.
opposed to the okay, I need to put myself out there so I can even be found.
Mhm.
And what energetically does this feel like in balancing those
Now,
polarities?
I will say because you're intuitive and
Hmm.
I am too, there was an element of that that I had to honor sometimes. So one time, I can speak on this and it was really fucking weird. I didn't stay on Facebook dating for very long. In fact, I only would stay on there some days, a couple days at a time, and I was like, whatever. I don't have time for this. I don't have the time to cultivate the things, right? So I'm just like, it's just good practice. And so that's how I also didn't get resentful about it because I was like, I'm open to whatever, good practice, whatever. Here we are, right? And one of the times it actually happened in July, back in July. Um, my my soul team was like, "Hey, you need to get on Facebook dating." And I was like, "You're out of your fucking mind." I was like, "Shut the fuck up and get out of here." I was like, "I don't have time right now." And they're like, "No, you need to do it now." And I'm like, you don't get to tell me what to do. Like, where's my free will, dick?" Like, it was like that whole argument was happening,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, fine. If you're not going to shut up," because it went on for 2 days straight. I was like, "Oh my God, if you're not going to shut up, I'll just fucking get on there." And then I did, and I connected with someone right away that I was like, "Oh my God, this totally makes sense now why you were harping on me." So there is, regardless of masculine, feminine, none of that even matters when you've got your fucking soul team going, you need to do this thing because it is
Yeah.
in your frequency and it is in your alignment, whether, no matter what we know or whatever moral codes or moral things are driving us, sometimes none of that shit matters if your team says you got to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then it kind of cancels out everything else that we think we are.
Well, I mean, there's a lesson in learning through all the experience, right? To like put
Yeah,
yourself in there, to put yourself out there, to navigate, to practice what you preach, like all of the above.
totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been fascinating. And I'll just go ahead and end with the fact that I've been in a committed relationship uh, since October
And how did you guys meet?
on Facebook dating. Yeah. It was, in fact, when that soul team was like, "Hey, you need to do this thing," that was kind of like the catalyst for how that happened, actually. So,
And the beautiful thing, it's so funny because there's different there's different times that yeah, different things will channel through you and you're like, okay, I'll jump on again or I'll do this again for whatever reason, whoever I'm supposed to connect with on the journey. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
fascinating.
So that's why I say it doesn't matter. Like we can sit here all day long and be like, "Oh, we're worried about the divine masculine or feminine," right? And we are. Like that, it seems like that is a value that you move through in your work, and it's something that I truly believe in with the polarities as well. And but at the end of the day, sometimes we have to leave room for the magic, right? And it's
Well,
and
yeah, well
and it
you have to make
yeah.
space for it.
Yeah, and so when, your guide comes punching you in the face and saying, "Get the fuck on Facebook," you just do it. It doesn't matter if it looks feminine or not. You do the thing, right? And so it's
Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't matter. Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. It's it's a weird thing sometimes being human.
Well, no, but and once again, like you have no idea. You're like, okay, that's like that, like that's not the norm. It's like, okay, guys,
Right.
like
So
I'm on it.
you
Like,
just
okay,
honor
like
it and
I'll
you
I'll look at that. I'll,
yep.
reopen my hinge or whatever the case is, right? Like
Mhm.
it's wild
It's
how
wild and it leaves you very
strong the
vulnerable.
messages are.
Yeah, and it leaves you very vulnerable because it's scary. It's like, wait a second, who's in charge here, me or you? What the fuck, right? So, but yeah, at the end of the day, like if you're honoring your intuition, which is what you should be doing, what everybody
Yeah,
should be doing, then yeah, it's pretty cool. So,
very cool. Like for me, one of my biggest journeys in the journey of it is I had to save myself,
hmm
and I couldn't, even from a relationship standpoint, I couldn't be in a relationship before now because I had to learn that I could save myself,
right? Yeah,
and that
that
is a powerful lesson that for some people could take
totally.
a month and for some people it could take a couple years, right? Like everyone's sort of on their healing journey with like what they need to. But like how you presented that in a profile is also a very thing because I know it's very valid for a lot of
hmm
women that I speak to. It's like, how do you do that without going into the
Masculine and running over everybody. Yeah,
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 you know what I mean? Or taking that action of searching as opposed to sitting in your sovereignty and sort of saying, okay, here I am, find me if
right. It's
you're
the difference between chasing and attracting, right? Like
exactly.
yeah, absolutely. So that's what worked for me, So hopefully
No,
these
I
little
love that.
pieces, I mean, you'll get to move through this on your own too. So it's coming for you.
Yeah.
It's coming for you. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that we did not talk about that you feel like we should touch base on
No,
real
I think
quick?
we went sort of everywhere and I love
Okay.
that. So it's just
Okay.
like, like I truly think that, each one of our own experiences, sort of like there's threads that everyone can pull from everything. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
no, I love that. I love where it's all gone.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and stop things here. Um, and yeah, if you want to just tell the audience bye. Bye, you guys.
Bye, guys.
See you next time.